Hi everybody, it's Ann King from Decor Creations by Ann. I am back here with another video for you on how to make a pumpkin from a sweater sleeve. Today, instead of using beans to fill and shape our pumpkin, we're going to do it with fiber fill. And the reason for that is so that it will be lightweight enough that if you want to put it in a wreath, you'll be able to do so without any problem. So once again, we start by cutting the sleeve off the sweater, cutting it as straight across as we can. I just use old sweaters that no longer fit or that I pick up somewhere else like Goodwill or from my daughter or whoever has an extra sweater laying around that they're not going to use. Again, we're going to turn it inside out. And we're going to put the seam at the top, right in the middle. And then we're going to take one of our zip ties, which are about 12 inches long. Put that zip tie up and around. But don't pull it tight just yet because you want to adjust your sweater so it looks more gathered and not folded. Now I'm going to turn it. I'm going to take these sides back, so they're not turned over on top of here. Bring my zip tie to about an inch above the cut edge. Gather it up as tightly as I can, and then zip tie as tightly as I can. Once I've done that, I'm going to cut it off as close to the little knob as I can. We're then going to turn it back right side out so that we will be able to fill it up with some fiber fill. Shake it down a little bit. Keep the top cuff turned so it's not in your way. And then start grabbing pieces of fiber fill. This is fiber fill. Sometimes I use fake snow because it's the same thing. They just call it fake snow at Christmas time. So when that goes on sale, I've been known to buy that and use it instead of fiber fill. We're going to stuff it down until we get our pumpkin at about the right shape. It's a little bit harder for me to shape using the fiber fill, but in the end it all works out. I like it to be nice and full and nice and round. So I'm going to push that up, put my hand inside and pull up the side as I push down the fiber fill. And another clump, because I like a nice big fat pumpkin. Okay, we've got all that in. Now I'm going to stick my hand in again and push it down well. I don't want to have a bunch of bends or folds or creases in my pumpkin. And now I'm going to take it, gather together up here at the top of the sleeve. And I'm going to use another 12-inch zip tie to go around that, gathered up, and pull it as tight as I can. Again, I'm going to first place it and then go back in and adjust my sleeve before I pull it tight, because otherwise I probably won't get it tight enough. I'm putting that at the back where my seam is from my sweater sleeve. Then pulling it tight. And just really pull hard. Pull it as tight as you can. Snip it off. And once again, we're going to shape a little bit. Just kind of poke around at it, squeeze it, roll it, do whatever until it has a shape that you're happy with. One other thing you can do if you know you won't be putting this in a wreath, you can just put a layer of maybe a cup of beans at the bottom to help it stand up straight. But since I know I'll be tying this into a wreath, I don't want to add any extra weight to it. Now it's time for the twine. We're going to wind the twine around this part of the sweater, and we're going to do that to make a pumpkin stem. Once again, I've got my hot glue gun plugged in. I'm going to put a little bit of glue right on that twist tie. And then I am going to take a piece of my twist tie and hold it against that. I've left about 6 inches on the cut end because I'm later going to hold that up along this fabric here in order to cover it up with the twine. In the meantime, I want a really good connection with my glue. So being able to hold it on both ends while it's still hot is good, because that way I won't burn myself and it'll stick really well. Once that is done, we're going to take this part, hold it up against this fabric, and we're just going to start winding around this part of the pumpkin base. What you want to do here is make sure your twine sits right on top of the last row of twine, so that you're going all the way around and keeping it nice and tight without the color of your sweater showing through. If it turns out that you've left some of it show through, it's kind of easy just to back up a few winds and rewind it. Pull it tight, because if you don't keep it pulled tight, it's going to separate and move around, and you don't want it to do that. You want it to stay exactly where you put it. Just make sure this little piece you left from the attachment of the twine is held up so that it's covered by your winding twine. It's really easy just to flip the pumpkin around now that we have no weight to it, and get it exactly the way you want it positioned. Once I've been up about 1 inch on this stem with my twine, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to snip off this piece that I've been winding, because it's now far enough wound that that won't slip out the bottom and mess up your pretty pumpkin stem. I'm going to continue going around, probably going to add about another inch of twine, maybe a little more, just to make sure I have a nice visible stem to work with. Holding your tension is the most important part of this, because if you don't keep the tension on it, it won't stay where you want it to stay, and then your pumpkin stem will get all saggy and funny looking, and no one will be happy. So again, winding and winding and winding, and this takes a little bit of time, but not really that much. Around and around. So all you're going to keep doing is go around and around. If you didn't recall or haven't watched the first video, this twine is a jute twine. Let me show that to you. I picked this up at Walmart. It says it is 1 pound or 453 G, and the number on it is 4 ply, number 72. Here you go. Walmart has a little craft section where they have a few wreaths and some foam and a few other things that people like to use, so that's where I find this. Once again, we're back to winding and winding and winding. Now, I'm about as far up as I want to go. So I'm going to, once again, place some glue on my sweater right against this top wind. The glue is hot. I'm going to be careful not to glue myself. And then you want to stretch your twine over that glue. Hold it in place for a minute or so while it dries so that it won't come loose and move around. And then we'll cut off some of the sweater length, and I'll show you how to arrange that extra fabric so that you can easily cover it up with more twine. So just waiting and waiting and waiting. I think today we might actually put a bow on our pumpkin. I'm thinking about some white flowers and maybe a couple of blue or just some leaves. I haven't really decided yet. But once we get it done, it'll be easier to decide what we want to attach to it. All right, now I've got that done. I'm just going to wrap around a couple more times. Make sure I'm covering up all that glue that I put on. Keeping my finger out of it because it's still warm. Now, holding that in place, I'm going to pull up on this excess sleeve. And I'm going to cut it off about 1/2 inch. Then I'm going to put hot glue on it, all around on the top. Now I want to let that hot glue cool just a little bit because I want to be able to squeeze my pieces of sweater together. And the only way I'm going to be able to do that without burning myself is to let this glue cool down just a little bit. So we've got about 30 seconds probably to wait. Make sure it's cool enough to touch. Once we reach that point, you're just going to be grabbing the sides and pushing them in towards the center. Squeezing that just as tight as you can. There'll still be some glue on top. Try not to stick your fingers in it. Just try and hold your sweater fabric as tight as you can. But don't get into the glue because the glue is really not yet cool enough. And I know that because I just stuck the tip of my finger in it and it's still too hot. So here we are. Once again, holding things in place. All right. Now I've got it as narrow as the rest of my stem is, which is how I want it to be. I'm going to wait just a little longer because that glue is still pretty warm. It's not really hot enough to burn, but it's not comfortable either. So we're going to let it cool just a little bit more. Okay, now that we've done that, we are going to squeeze over the top sections into the glue. It's going to look messy. That's okay because we're going to cover it up with twine. And no one will ever notice that big gluey mess you've got. As it cools more and more, I can push in more and more. You're probably sticking to your sweater. Be careful. Kind of roll your finger up when you take your hand off the fabric so you don't pull it apart where you've so carefully just glued it together. Now, holding. As you can see, I've got glue, but it's not hot enough to burn, so there's nothing to worry about. All right, I'm going to let go of that. And I am going to peel that glue off because it will stick to my sweater, possibly snag it, and I don't want to do that. Throw that away. And now we wind until we get to the top. We're going to wind until we get even with that top that we just glued together. Probably, I don't know, maybe 10 more winds. Keep it nice and tight. It should be getting just a little bit narrower as you work your way up that step. Now that I'm near the top, I am going to glue down that twine one more time. And once that has cooled, which is not yet, I am going to put a little more glue on the top and wind my twine onto the top so that no more of the sweater is showing. There's really no easy way to do this part. You just have to keep testing that glue to see if it's cool enough and then go around it. They do sell little rubber fingertips that are supposed to protect your fingers from hot glue burn. I don't care for them myself because I can't really feel what I'm doing through them, but other people love them. So if that's something you want to try, I would certainly give it a shot. Here we go. More glue on the top. And now I'm going to attempt to go around the top easily, carefully. Not sticking my fingers in the hot glue. I tried putting pins in here to go around it and hold it in place. Unfortunately, I couldn't get the pins out afterwards because of the hot glue. So that defeated the purpose of hiding the sweater because then I had the tops of pins showing. And that's not very attractive either. So again, just waiting till it cools enough that I can touch it, not burn myself. We're almost there. Once I get to where I think I'm going to put the last piece in, I will cut my twine. Not before, because if it turns out it's not quite enough, then I'm going to have the headache of trying to add more twine in and gluing myself in it, which I don't want to do. I've got a couple of places where it's separated a little as I worked up. If I can't work those together, I'll simply glue another piece of twine across it. But they work together pretty well, and I don't think they'll be at all noticeable. Snipping this off. And pushing it down. And again, there we go. We've got our stem. We're done with the twine. We'll go back and pick up any little pieces of glue that we left. And now it's time to decide what we want to put around the top of this particular pumpkin. I think what I will do is use some of my ficus leaf, which is this. It costs about $1.28 per stem at Michael's. The rest of the glue off. Out of the way for now. And I'm going to cut it off in little clumps of 3 using my wire cutters. This is a mini bolt cutter actually, but a wire cutter would work very well. I just like this because it's sharper. I'm just cutting down about 1/4 to 1/2 inch below the bottom leaf because I'm going to glue it really close into the stem. And I think I might need 5 of these, so I'm going to go ahead and cut 5, and then if I need more, I can go back and cut more. There we go. In here, with my tools, I have a needle nose cutters. They come in really handy if you find you need to push down into that glue at the bottom of your stem and you don't want to burn yourself. So I grab it just like this between the end of the needle nose. Then I'll put a little bit of glue on it, just on the very end. I'm going to tip back the stem and try and push under it as much as I can. Like this. Now I'm going to get another piece and just keep going around the base of this stem that we made. Number 3 going in. Strings of glue. When you see them, just pull them off. They're inevitable. There's no way to avoid them. But you do want to try and get them off your finished product. Okay, that is leaves around the stem. Now you can buy leaves that look more like a pumpkin leaf if you want to at a craft store. Some flowers have leaves that look very pumpkin-y, but I'm just not really too worried about that because I am putting a floral arrangement. And as we know, flowers do not naturally grow around the base of the stem on a pumpkin. So I'm going to ask Zachary to hand me that bunch of white flowers next to him. Right behind you on the flowers, the white ones. There we go. It's stuck, so let's go over here and get one of these bunches. There we go. This bunch right here worked just fine. It's got some white hydrangea flowers. It's got a couple of kind of sort of magnolia looking blooms. Some pink blooms, a burgundy colored bloom, not boom. And I'm going to go ahead and cut those off about an inch below the base of the flower with my wire cutters, just like this. Put some glue on it and stick it down in the sweater between one of the holes in the knitting. Let it stand up just a little bit so it looks kind of pretty. Now I've seen on a lot of different websites in the last month that the traditional colors are still popular for fall, but that one thing that is really trending heavily for fall is blue and white and yellow and some of the more pastel colors. So I'm not too worried about putting in the pastel colors. I think if they're trending, that's fine. We'll give it a shot and see if people like it. Another flower here. I'm going to go ahead. I have the pushable leaves on it, which means I can push them up the stem. Go ahead. Place one of these down in here, pushing it into the sweater as much as I can. And letting it stand. And then another piece of hydrangea will be pretty. I think I'm going to cut this one about 2 inches. and let it stick out farther than the other ones, kind of laying a little bit onto the side of my pumpkin, and see how that looks. Pushing it up under here. I'm gonna kind of hang out there for a minute. Obviously, I need to put something else on that, but it's a start. I think I'll take this nice burgundy colored flower, see if I have some slidable leaves. Yes, I do. And I'm gonna put up 2 bunches of leaves, so it's pretty leafy looking, because there are things I wanted to hide up at the base, like my glue, and the stem of the hydrangea I chose to stick out further. Put some glue on that, and stick it in right here at the base of the hydrangea stem. Now it hides all that glue and stuff that was at the base of it, so I don't have to worry about that showing up and not looking attractive. I also think I might put a little bit of pink, just to lighten it up a little. These pink have little kind of burgundy and green looking leaves attached to them that I think would look cute in there. And I'm going right up under this burgundy flower that I just put in, and pushing that up against the base, like so. On the back side, I'm going to put another pink flower. It's got the same little leaf attachments. Slide them right up to the base of the rose. And then I can tuck that rose up under the back side of my burgundy flower. And give it a little more texture, like so. Now I have got 2 pieces on this same bush of kind of a seed pod. Looks like where maybe a flower had been and flower died and left you with a seed pod in the center. I've got 2 of those, and I want to use them to add more texture to this design. That's probably all of that I'm going to use. So I'm going to set that out of the way. Go ahead and get a little glue at the base of that. I'm going to stick it in right down next to that burgundy colored flower. And then I'm going to take this one and probably stick it right next to that one. It's a little bit taller, so it's going to stand up a little bit higher. And it's nice to have a little bit of height differential in your design. Now, there's my pumpkin. I want to add a bow to that. It's going to be what we call a half bow, and I'll show you how to make that. You can do it by hand, or if you have an easy bow maker, makes it really easy to do it. But I'll go ahead and do it by hand because I know a lot of you may not have a bow maker at this point. I'm going to use plain white canvas, 2.5 inch white ribbon. It's wired because I want to be able to give it the shape I want it to have and have it not move after I place it. So it's very difficult to make bows without the wired ribbon. They tend to just flop and not do anything you want. So I always recommend only buying good quality wired ribbon. One way you can tell if it's good is if you hold it up like this, pull out a little piece and hold it up like this, it holds the loop. It doesn't flop together. That's what you want. That's a good ribbon for making a bow. So for this bow, I want a little bit of a tail hanging down. I'm not sure exactly how much, but what I'm going to do is just kind of accordion it together and pinch it up about 10 inches. Then I want, this is a small pumpkin, so I'm only going to put about 3 loops, and I want one of the loops to be about 5 inches tall. And just gather it up together again at the back, but then you're going to grab hold of it below your pinch and twist it so that when you come back with your next loop, the top of your ribbon is still on the top of your loop, not the back of your ribbon. And then I'm going to pinch that in here. And do the same. And pinch another little piece there. Hold this up here. Now, because everything is done in white, I'm going to go ahead and get a piece of white chenille stem, or pipe cleaner as we call them a lot of times. Just wind that very tightly around my bow. As you can see, that's just 3 loops, relatively different sizes. Cut off my ribbon. And then I'll set it aside and show you. Excuse me. Allergy season. I'm tossing this back in my ribbon box. At the bottom of your remaining stem, you want to fold it over and then cutting from the fold to the wire. You cut at an angle. And this gives you a nice dovetail finish on your bow. Looks a lot more professional and neat that way than just having a straight ragged edge. I personally like my bow tails to be different lengths. So I'm going to cut this one a little bit shorter. And there we go. A nice little dovetail end. Now, taking my pumpkin, right up here, next to this red flowers, where I want to put this bow, I want it laying sideways. And I am going to put glue on the back of this. My pipe cleaner has been cut short after twisting it about 5 times. Don't use your scissors while wire in your pipe cleaner, and that will dull your scissors. And sometimes it'll be stubborn, but oh well. Okay, so I'm putting glue on the back of this. Pretty good size glob, because I want to make sure it sticks. I'm going in, make sure I get it on the sweater. And then I'm going to take a straight pin and use that to help secure it onto the pumpkin. I'm going to fluff out my loops. I'm going to arrange these the way I want them. I don't want this one as long, so I'm going to make another cut. There you have it. A cute little turquoise pumpkin made by you with no more cost than a roll of twine, a little bit of fiber felt, a little bit of ribbon to make a bow, and maybe a third to a half of an inexpensive bush of flowers. I think I paid about $5 for that bush at Walmart. A lot of times I'll buy flowers from Michael's or from Hobby Lobby, but I like to wait till they have everything on sale before I do it. And again, there you go. Here's your adorable little pumpkin. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll be back with more.